Guanacaste, Costa Rica, the Rythmia Life Advancement Center. And it is another beautiful day, a gorgeous Tuesday, dry, clear, and the wind is whipping. It's fantastic to be here. Thanks for joining us. I want to tell you a little bit about the Rythmia Life Advancement Center. It is a life advancement center that's focused on metaphysical teachings and ayahuasca, a medicine. Uh, it has lots of different components: breathwork, yoga, meditation, the cleanse, organic food. There are many different supporting things that support this and create something called a soul merger, which is a fractured soul that comes back together. And it's a beautiful event. So a little bit about it. So this is called What Works 10. Before getting to that, I want to tell you about What Works 7. Sorry, not 10, 7. And before getting to that, I want to talk to you a little bit about Rythmia. So far, there have been 13,500 guests through the door, more than, and 96.12% of them, 961 out of 1,000, claim a life-changing miracle during their stay that has to do with this soul merger. 91.87% at 6 months say that this event is still working in their life, and that this was the week that changed their life. 2,200 TripAdvisor reviews, and we are a top 10 resort in the world on the percentage of 5-star reviews to overall reviews. So a couple things I want to remind you about today is what we talked about so far in these get-togethers about being 400 trillion to 1. That is the odds of you, of that sperm meeting that egg and creating that life that is you. And we talked about that realization will hopefully lead us to want to do something really spectacular with our life, and really spectacular in the broadest sense, whether that means being the most amazing mom, or the most amazing community leader, or the most amazing business person, or the most amazing musician, whatever it means, the most amazing spouse. But realizing the sheer statistical value of one life will make you look at things differently. And that's step one in this process. Number two, we realized that the secret ingredient to success is not intelligence or innate ability for something. It's actually grit. And what is grit? Grit is the willingness to honor agreements with ourselves, even when it's hardest to do so. So grit is kind of like perseverance, but it's even deeper. It's honoring agreements despite any temporary circumstance. And by temporary circumstance, I can mean tiredness or sadness or anything. So grit is saying, hey, I'm going to do this thing. Now, what spawns grit is your why. So your why spawns grit, right? So we start out with just keeping agreements with ourselves. And then when we pick the thing that is our thing for becoming a beneficial presence on the planet, the why that we pick that has to be a super clear why. And that usually comes from an unfractured soul. The why is so clear because that why is a remembrance that keeps us honoring our agreements, which outpictures as grit. Now, we already found out from the 40-year-old Harvard study that writing down your goals, writing down how you want things to be is of primary importance. So over 10 years, it gives a 1,000% increase in earnings over someone who hasn't done that. Just think about that, something simple. Now, one of the things we pick this that we've learned is that we have to acknowledge how long it's going to take, while at the same time not capping the greatness of that. So what do I mean by that? I'm going to say, okay, this thing that I'm going to pick to become a beneficial presence on the planet is going to take between 7 and 13 years, most likely 10. And it's going to be bigger and give me more than I can ever imagine. So I have an idea of how long it's going to take, but I have no idea. I'm open at the top for how good it will get, how much it will bring, how many it will heal, what changes it's going to make to a life. Like, I leave that open at the top. So if we can do those two things, we can get somewhere. Now, last week I talked about not deviating from our agreements with ourselves. I showed you how to pray. The week before, we talked about tithing from the delta. So let's just go through those things real quick. So the how to pray is every day in the spiritual mind treatment, I thank the powers that be, whatever they are in your world, for something that I know is mine, this house. Oh, I'm thankful for that. And then after it, something that I'm currently manifesting but has not shown up in the universe yet. And then something that I have, and then something that I'm manifesting and it hasn't shown up yet. And repetition of those things in the state of gratitude gets you to believe, at your subconscious to believe that it happened, and then to act in accord to make that belief a reality. That's what happens, right? The next thing, tithing from the delta. Tithing from the delta. What's the delta? The delta is the difference between what I'm making now and what I'm going to be making when I acquire this new skill, or business or whatever. So I'm not asking you to tithe on what you have now, because as we know, most Americans are spending 100% of the money that they're making. So asking you to tithe is a crazy suggestion. But asking you to tithe from the delta, making the universe your partner in the over and ever expanding good that is coming your way, is right on point. It's perfectly right. How do we tithe? We tithe by agreement. I, Jerry, am writing an agreement with myself to tithe 7% of this delta, of this new money that this new thing is going to create. And here's who I'm going to give it to: this place, that place, and the other place. That's tithing by agreement, and it's an important part of the process. Now, I don't like to talk about deterrents. I'm usually a guy who likes to talk about accelerants, right, to this process. But I have to talk about deterrents, but I do it with great caution, because if you've ever played golf, if you've ever driven a car, if you ever raced a car, you know, if you ever skied, you know that the thing that you're looking at, so I remember back in Pennsylvania, I used to drive down the same roads all the time because I'm a creature of habit, and I go to work the same way. And the more that I try to miss certain potholes in northeastern Pennsylvania, the more I'd hit them. And I thought, man, that's funny, because so with deterrents, what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to be aware of them in our periphery, but not look at them. So what's that like? So if you're golfing, right, and 90% of this hole on the golf course is grass, but 10% is water. If I'm focused on the water, I swear to you, 8 out of 10 times that ball is going in the water. Now, if I know the water is there, but I'm focused on putting it somewhere else, I never go in. But part of getting really good at manifesting is to become aware of where we're at all the time. So these are awarenesses. So what I want to tell you about is awareness. So if you could just be conscious of this one awareness and convert it. I'm not asking you to stop it. I'm asking you to convert it to something. So what is it? Well, it shows up as otherizing and gossip. So if you're involved in otherizing, it's not me, it's someone else, and then talking about that someone else, if you could ever turn that gossip into either constructive prayer, meditation, or work. So in other words, you may not know, or you may not be aware of all the times that you participate in gossip. So we live in a spiritual community here, right? And there is gossip. There is. When I sit down at a table and I hear that gossip, I try to be very active to not participate in it. And if I can, convert it into something else. And what does that mean? So you sit down at a lunch table where you work and people are saying, oh, did you hear Mary is sleeping with Bob and that creates this and da 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 da. And that moment, if you can say, well, I don't know that because I wasn't there, but I do know that Mary does this excellent job at doing this and doing that and doing this. And I do know that Bob does an excellent job at doing this and doing that. All of a sudden, you converted that into something else, or get out of, get out of the way of it. Get out of the way of it. Or even better yet, take the time that you would have spent involved in that gossip and convert it to something positive in the form of work. Okay, that's really wild stuff. But my God, if you can do that, and I see people on the internet all the time, and I feel so horrible for them that all they do is they recant stories that started out as gossip amongst each other and at particular people, and they waste their time doing that. And I think about Elon Musk and some of the bigger Jeff Bezos and all these people, and I wonder if the people that are talking crap about them really realize that these guys don't care, number one, and number two, if they're talking crap about them, they're never going to get on the journey themselves so that they can have some of what they seem to be so jealous of. So if you can convert that time and watch yourself, and I got to tell you, most of us, when we hear that, we say, Jerry, you know what? I don't gossip. I don't talk about other people. I don't do this and I don't do that. Because I thought I didn't either until I really started to become sensitive to my doing it. And when I saw me doing it, I just felt bad for me because it made the realization that I did that. And then the realization that if I didn't notice that I did it, I wonder how much time I didn't notice I gave to it, how much time I wasted talking about someone in an unhealthy way in some way, or allowing it to be discussed in my presence, in my sphere. So be super, super, super aware of that. So now the next thing that I'm going to talk about today. So the more successful folks at manifestation tend to not pay attention to what's going on culturally in the moment. And what do I mean by that? Well, we're living in a time of what's in it for me. What can I get for free? How can I do this? It should be easy for me. I'm entitled to these things. We're living in that time. Now, wealthy people that are good at manifesting things, don't ever participate in that. They don't look for ways to participate in that. Now, what can be disheartening for people is to realize that we're in a blame culture, that we're in a cancel culture currently, that we're in a culture that is very entitled and has a real easy time. Now, in looking at that, it's easy to get super negative about what the chances and outcomes for me are, but I want to tell you how to look at that. For a go-getter, that is the greatest set of conditions precedent you could ever want. Like, it's a great time to have goal-driven children. It's a great time to be goal-driven yourself. It's a great time to have what I can do for you mentality. It's a wonderful time, because if more people are on the entitlement, what can you do for me, train, they're going to be much easier to compete with. So don't become negative about that. Become positive about that. Become wholeheartedly positive about that. You can even put it on your list of gratitude. Thank God for me that we're living in a time of entitlement, because I'm not. And that makes it easier for me to manifest my situation on this planet. So if you turn that negative into a positive, and I know and this has been going on for thousands of years, right? You always listen to old people, and they constantly say, well, the country that I knew is gone, the way of life that I knew is gone, the way of this I knew that is gone, all the good, all the easy money has been made, all the da 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 da, all the good people have been taken, da da. They talk like that. Uh-huh. So that's been going on forever. What I'm asking you to do is to not pick a side in it, but for yourself to remain sovereign, to remain positive, because these are the conditions present. I mean, let's just talk about it. If you wanted to truly build a company that's going to make a difference, would you want to do it against 10 guys who are doing the same thing, that believe in hard work, dedication, gratitude, grit, grind, toughness, da da da? Or would you want to do it against 9 people who think it should be done for them? I'll pick the 9 people who think it should be done for them. I want to compete against them. So don't be negative about what's going on, the conditions present. Realize that you were sent here to be a light of something different than that. You were sent here to lead by your example, that you are a different being than that. And that can even give you more of a bigger why when considering what you're doing, right? So look at everything, be aware of things, but don't let them get to you. And whatever you do, don't change your agreements with yourself. And I want to talk about that because people say, well, what is the trick to honoring agreements with yourself? And I'm going to tell you the trick, and it's hard. If you make them life or death. If you act like this agreement to get up, and I have to tell you, the whole last week I was sick, and I thought it was a cold, but I think it was allergies. And I tried to lay in bed for an extra 5 minutes, and I looked, because my nose was stuffy, and I felt like somebody hit me with a truck, and da 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 da. And I thought to myself, what if my life depended on this? And it did, because I wasn't sick enough to dishonor an agreement with myself. If I was in the hospital or deathly ill, that I could have done harm to myself, that's a different thing. But that's looking at that and saying, this is an agreement with myself that I have to honor because I love me. So this is the thing. I love me. I want to build a better me. I want to build a stronger me. I want to build a smarter me. I want to build a more resilient me. Those things, and listen, all the studies that are out there, we use 5% of our brain. We use about a third of our expendable energy. So we're not even to the 33% mark, even though it feels so hard, of what we can expend. We are the most, if you take a look at, guys in companies will say, guys and women in companies will say, well, let's look at our underutilized assets, our underutilized assets. Let's look at them. You know what the most unutilized asset in your life is? You. So you, for as crazy as it gets, are that. I am that to me, and I'm aware of it. So and listen, when you learn to start honoring your agreements to yourself, in the very beginning, you get proud of it. And that is stage 1. And then you get used to it. And that's stage 2. And by used to it, I mean, when I make an agreement with myself, I have very little doubt that it's going to be honored. So then what happens? When you move into this second stage of honoring those agreements to yourself, you also see the importance of honoring agreements to others, and you make less yeses. So there was a movie out one time with Jim Carrey about saying yes and how it had worked out for him and all these things. I'm going to tell you, until your no is strong, your yes is worthless. Mhm. Until your no is strong, your yes is worthless. So all of a sudden, I start honoring these agreements to myself. I really do. And I notice that I'm no longer proud of it. It's just the way that I am. And in this way of being me, I say no to most people who come to me with most things. No. Because I can't have many yeses out there because I can't focus on a bunch of different stuff. I can only focus on a few. And I know that when I say yes to them, because they are my brothers and my sisters, I'm going to have to honor the agreement as if I said yes to me. So this is all happening. You have to take all this in. Now, a lot of people look at this and they go, oh my God, this is really hard stuff. And I'm going to tell you that it is. Like, we're super lucky here because I get a wide array of people from different socioeconomic environments, but I get a real lot of of business owners, billionaires, actors, actresses, athletes, who are at the top of their game. Now, if you look at those people, they always have the same stuff. You see, they honor their agreements to themselves first. Honor their agreements to themselves first. So if you can get in that habit, you have a great advantage. So I ask you to get in that habit. People say, how do you get in that habit? You start with the littlest things, but you don't waste time. You accelerate very quickly. You start by saying, hey, today or tomorrow or the next day, I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock, and just get up. You're not going to do anything else. All you got to do is, when the alarm clock is, get up. Now you honored an agreement to yourself. 3 days later, you say, not only am I going to get up, but instead of having donuts and bear claws, which would be wonderful, by the way, I'm going to have just coffee and I'm going to skip my morning meal. Now you do that for 5 days. And now you say, not only am I going to do that, but I'm going to get up and I'm going to take a walk for 10 minutes. And now you do that for 5 days. Now you're starting to build trust in yourself that you're honoring, and then you start adding things. I'm going to meditate or do spiritual mind treatments or pray or duff for the 10 minutes during my walk. And now you start doing that. And every day you honor that. And now all of a sudden you're building confidence in your word to yourself. And what you'll find is you might even walk a little straighter, be a little more clear in those things. So that's what I wanted to chat with you about today. I'm near the end of this. God bless you. God keep you. God hold you. We'll talk to you next week, and have a beautiful, wonderful week, and spend some time with these things, because time's a ticking and it's going away. And by the way, if you want, buy my books, Truthonomics or Shit the Moon Said, to get you on a nice start or just to entertain you. Please do that. Cheers. Have a wonderful day.